Imagine the vast expanse of continental Eurasia as a giant teapot. At opposite ends, two handles reach out into the sea, the British Isles and the Japanese archipelago. On these two island groups sit the two most powerful island nations on Earth, the United Kingdom and the state of Japan. At first glance, the two countries couldn't seem more different. Geographically, they are 10,000 kilometers apart, with nearly a quarter of the Earth's circumference between them. Religiously, Japan is primarily Shinto and Buddhist, while the UK is mostly Christian. Culturally, Japan values tradition and group harmony, whereas the UK emphasizes individualism and personal freedom. Racially, Japan is largely homogeneous, while the UK is multicultural, with diverse ethnic groups. On the surface, it seems these two nations are quite literally worlds apart. But look closer, and you will discover that these two distant nations share far more in common than meets the eye. Both retain their monarchies, maintain similar political systems, and have complicated relationships with the mainland. They were both once mighty maritime empires, dominating their parts of the world with powerful fleets. Britain's Industrial Revolution and colonial enterprises like the East India Company find striking parallels in Japan's Meiji-era modernization and the rise of its state-guided corporations, such as the South Manchuria Railway Company. Both countries drive on the left side of the road, are known for formality and politeness, have immensely successful pop cultures, and make great whiskey. Even in architecture, the similarities are undeniable. But how did two island nations, so far apart, end up so alike? What lessons can we draw from their parallel paths? What has been the secret behind their rise to power and prosperity? And why is it a formula that other island nations like the Philippines or Indonesia can never replicate? In this project, we will journey to both the UK and Japan to explore the deep-rooted connections between these two islands. We're gonna find that thin line that ties them together and study how it led them to synchronize. From the early alliances, through the rivalries during the war, to the present-day partnership in the Indo-Pacific, we will dive into the forces that shaped them. Through the lens of Japan and the UK, we will look for the secrets that allowed these smaller, insular nations, separated from vast continents, not only to survive, but to rise and influence the course of global history. This project will take 3 to 6 months to produce. There will be 3 episodes in total, and it's gonna be expensive and difficult to produce. This was once the heaviest and most powerfully armed battleship in history, Yamato, the flagship of Japan's combined fleet. Yet, instead of being known for its military strength, having served less than 3 years and fought only 4 battles before sinking, it became famous for its lavish accommodations. The Japanese navies from smaller battleships back then even mocked it as the Yamato Hotel, which leaves outsiders like us wondering, was the Yamato Hotel really a thing, or is it just a myth? By now, I've probably got your attention and you've decided to do a quick search on Google, only to find there's no hotel by that name in Japan. Well, that's because you're mistaken on 2 counts. First, the Yamato Hotel wasn't that single hotel. Second, it wasn't even in Japan. The Yamato Hotel was actually a super high-end hotel chain operated by one of the largest companies to have ever existed in Japanese history, the South Manchuria Railway Company, SMR, the de facto ruler of Northeast China for almost 4 decades. At its peak, the Yamato hotel chain had at least 14 hotels scattered across Northeast China. However, only 8 survived the turmoil of the 20th century. 2 in Dalian, 2 in Lushun, 1 in Shenyang, 1 in Fushun, 1 in Changchun, and 1 in Harbin. As of 2025, 5 of these hotels are still in business, while 1 has been turned into a museum and the other 2 are now military property. If you have the chance to visit one, like I did, you will be struck by their class and style. Some of these former Yamato hotels, now over 120 years old, remain among the most beautiful hotels I've ever seen. And they are so significant that some of the world's most influential figures, from China's last emperor Puyi to Chairman Mao Deng Xiaoping, and even Soviet General Secretary Nikita Khrushchev have stayed here. So the question arises, what kind of company was SMR? Why was a Japanese railway company running a luxury hotel chain outside of Japan? And why is it that you have never heard of it? For this project, we're heading to northeast China to visit 4 major cities: Dalian, Shenyang, Changchun, and Harbin, along with some smaller yet critical cities. We will unveil the mythical SMR, do a lot of interviews, and revive a chapter of history that neither China, Japan, nor Russia likes to talk about, one that is rapidly being forgotten. We will take a deep dive into the Japanese past of northeast China, the rise and fall of Manchukuo, visit all 8 surviving Yamato hotels, and spend the night in some of them. I mean, some people collect stamps, some people collect Disneylands, and Jingwu collects Yamato hotels in northeast China. We all have our thing. Anyway, we will also explore many surviving Japanese buildings, infrastructure, shrines, banks, and hospitals, telling their stories along the way. Ultimately, through the South Manchuria Railway Company, I'd like to present to you a unique case of how sometimes the tools of colonialism, SMR, despite its demise, live on through its bones and flesh, and still play a vital role in northeast China. The production will take 3 to 6 months, and we will release 3 episodes. Since the project will be filmed in China, it's going to be easy and cheap to make. This is Shandong Peninsula. With an area of 73,000 square kilometers, it is the largest peninsula in China. Just 100 kilometers away lies the Liaodong Peninsula. With an area of 29,000 square kilometers, it is the 2nd largest peninsula in China. Below Liaodong is the largest peninsula in East Asia, covering an area of 223,000 square kilometers, more than double the size of both Shandong and Liaodong combined, the Korean Peninsula. These 3 peninsulas are among the closest of their kind in the world, both geographically and culturally. And between them stretches a body of water with a deceptively simple name, the Yellow Sea. In East Asia, people tend to be very practical when naming places. When they build a city on a piece of flatland, they name it Pyongyang, which literally means flatland. When they build a city by an estuary, they name it Eido, meaning river door. When they build a city by the ocean, they name it Shanghai, or on the ocean. And when they see a sea that appears yellow due to the vast deposits of lowers carried by the Yellow River, they name it Huanghai, Huanghe, or Huokai, simply the Yellow Sea. For millennia, the Three Sisters and the Yellow Sea have been geopolitical hotbeds, perhaps the most important region in East Asia. Looking at the map, it's easy to see why. The Yellow Sea marks the frontier for all 3 major East Asian civilizations: China, Korea, and Japan. The geography makes conflict inevitable. But the drama in the Yellow Sea goes far beyond what we might expect. Because you see, the sea is critical not only to the Chinese, Koreans, and Japanese, but Europeans from the other side of the world also established bases here to gain a foothold. The British controlled Weihai for 32 years, the Germans ruled Qingdao for 16 years, and the Russians held Dalian and Lushun for a total of 15 years. And let's not forget the Americans. They still maintain 2 military bases directly on the Yellow Sea, one in Incheon and one in Gunsan. These foreign powers left lasting impacts, influencing both the economy and culture of the region. With all these competing powers, an obvious question arises. Why and how did the 3 peninsulas make the Yellow Sea so crucial? For this project, we will take 3 boat journeys across the Yellow Sea. First from Weihai to Incheon, then from Incheon to Dalian, and finally from Dalian back to Weihai. Along the way, we will explore the rich and complex history of these 3 peninsulas, uncovering the untold naval wars, alliances, and stories that have shaped this region. We will also see how Confucianism was born and took firm root here, how East Asian moral and political order was laid, and why controlling all three is crucial to dominating East Asia. Ultimately, through the lens of the Three Sisters, we will investigate the fundamental logic of the Yellow Sea, and how the unique geography of these peninsulas has shaped their fates and continues to dictate their destinies. The production will take 3 to 6 months, and we will release 3 episodes. It will be neither too difficult nor too expensive to make. This is the map of China, including all its disputed territories. The country is officially divided into 34 province-level administrative divisions, 23 provinces, 5 autonomous regions, 4 municipalities, and 2 special administrative regions, SARs, Hong Kong and Macau. These 2 regions are indeed special in every way imaginable. They have their own flags, financial systems, legal structures, and even passports. To give you an idea of just how different these passports are, here are the stats. As of 2025, a Hong Kong passport grants visa-free or visa-on-arrival access to 174 countries and territories. A Macau passport grants access to 148, while a mainland Chinese passport only allows access to 82. In essence, Hong Kongers and Macanese may be Chinese citizens, but they live in a reality that's worlds apart from the mainland. Located on opposite sides of the Pearl River estuary, these are 2 of the smallest cities in China. Hong Kong, made up of dozens of islands and peninsulas, covers just 1,106 square kilometers and has a population of 7.5 million. Macau is even smaller, it's 33 times smaller than Hong Kong, with a population of just 680,000. Looking at these 2 tiny dots on the map, some questions must be answered. What makes Hong Kong and Macau so unique and irreplaceable that even the immensely powerful China must concede and grant them such privileges? Well, the short answer lies in their European colonial past. Hong Kong was administered by the British since 1841, while Macau was under Portuguese rule for even longer, beginning in 1557. But these are just dates and facts that anybody can look up online. At Jingwu Show, we don't do Wikipedia geography and history. That's for the AI to handle. Instead, we bleed, we toil, we suffer, and we sweat to ask great questions and to get real answers. What are these cities really like? Where do the people come from? What hidden stories and forgotten pasts lie beneath their modern facades? How have Hong Kong and Macau not just changed, but revolutionized China? For this project, we are traveling to Hong Kong and Macau to explore these dreamlike cities. From towering skyscrapers and neon-lit casinos to bustling streets, we will experience the pulse of these dynamic regions. We will revisit their Portuguese and British legacies and examine their historical influence. We will uncover wartime and post-war stories of these cities, diving into darker histories from human trafficking and smuggling to the power struggles between influential families and the North Korean agency. We will also discuss the unique legal and financial systems, as well as the intricate network of Guangdong, Hong Kong, and Macau Greater Bay Area. Ultimately, through these 2 SARs, we will explore how sometimes the smallest places, the edges of empires, can shape the fate of the world's largest civilizations. This project will take 3 to 6 months to film and produce, and it won't be too difficult or expensive. After our time in Hong Kong and Macau, let's head northeast for about 1,200 kilometers to another megacity with a similarly convoluted past with the Europeans, Shanghai. This is China's largest and most populous city, home to 30 million people. Shanghai is a city of extremes. It's the busiest port in the world, hosts the largest stock exchange in Asia, generates 4% of China's GDP, and is home to the world's longest and busiest metro network. But Shanghai isn't just about modernity. Walk through the city, and alongside those skyscrapers, you will find ancient Chinese temples, century-old Russian bakeries, authentic European department stores, Stalinist architecture, and beautiful British and French buildings lining the Huangpu River. These are not recent additions. Many are over 120 years old. Shanghai is not only one of the richest and most advanced cities globally, but it is also the most international city in China. About 1/4 of all foreigners living in mainland China call Shanghai home. It's so global that in the English language, Shanghai is not just a noun, but also a verb. Now, I'm sure you have seen plenty of documentaries, vlogs, and films about glamorous Shanghai and how crazily important it is to the world. That's why in this project, I won't focus too much on the city's modern exterior. Those high-rises you see are merely the latest leaves and fruits. Let me remind you of this. Shanghai has been the fanciest city in China, not just for the past 40 years, but for the past 140 years. What I really want to focus on is the interior of Shanghai, the roots and foundation of its strengths. Who were the first builders of its industrial and financial backbone? What policies allowed it to evolve into the global powerhouse it is today? And how did Shanghai, once a fishing village and port town, become this? For this project, we will explore Shanghai's European past, study the treaties that made it, walk through the French concession and international settlement, and visit century-old Western-style homes that are still standing and for sale. We will demonstrate how Shanghai helped industrialize China and how it became a haven for Russian and Jewish refugees in the early 20th century. We will also explore how Shanghai was destroyed during the war and the price it paid for its rebirth in New China. Through the lens of Shanghai, I want to challenge you with this question. While colonial domination often oppressed and extracted wealth, can exploitation also plant the seeds of development and lay the foundation for empowerment? The project will take less than 3 months to produce with 2 episodes, and it will be cheap and easy to make. This is the top of the world, the Arctic Circle. It spends 3 months every year in complete daylight and 3 months every year in complete darkness. It is the least populated region in the Northern Hemisphere. Yet, it is home to territories from 8 countries, the 5 Nordic nations, Finland, Sweden, Norway, Iceland, Denmark, along with Russia, the US, and Canada. The far north has always been surrounded by mystery, the endless days and nights, the bone-chilling cold, the strange white animals with tusks and antlers that seem otherworldly, and the eerie green and purple lights that haunt the sky, spectacles that have mesmerized humanity since time immemorial. But what if I told you that as the planet warms, the mystery of the North is melting away, and something new has emerged? Something so important and critical that every major superpower is rushing here to claim a piece. Russia is building more dockyards to serve its Arctic fleet. Denmark and Sweden are buying maritime patrol aircraft and strengthening their Arctic defense systems. Finland and Norway are planning new railways and roads to Arctic ports while training their troops like crazy. Iceland, despite having no military forces, has declared the need to have skin in the game when it comes to Arctic defense and security. Canada launched its Arctic foreign policy in late 2024, investing in icebreakers and northern infrastructure. The US is sending teams of researchers to the North Pole with plans to annex Canada and purchase Greenland. All these developments raise some interesting questions. Beyond the obvious retreat of ice and the opening of new shipping routes, what opportunities do these superpowers see that are driving them to take such bold steps, even risking diplomatic conflict, to gain an advantage? What does this race mean for the local communities? And seriously, what's hiding under the Arctic Circle? Filming for this project will begin in mid-December when the last sun of the year sets, and will end 3 months later when the first sun rises. Yes, this project will be filmed entirely in darkness, hence the codename Night Nations. We will start our journey in Russia, crossing into the Nordic countries, Greenland, Canada, and finally concluding our expedition in Alaska, where we explore the region's history, its myths, and the daily lives of the people living in the true north. We will visit abandoned towns, forgotten railways, and newly established infrastructure. A major focus of this project will be energy, robotics, the race for artificial intelligence, and why coldness is becoming both a treasure and a hidden engine for a new age. Through the lens of the Arctic Circle, I invite everyone to consider this question. In a world rapidly reshaped by climate change, what happens when nature's barriers, the oceans, deserts, and ice caps, collapse, turning into highways for empires? This project will take at least 3 to 6 months to film and produce, and will be one of my most challenging and expensive projects yet. This is India, the most populous and the 7th largest country in the world. With a land area of 3.3 million square kilometers and a population of 1.45 billion, it stands as a global giant. This is China, the 2nd most populous and 3rd largest country on Earth. Spanning 9.6 million square kilometers and with a population of 1.41 billion, it also stands as a global giant. Together, these two countries make up 35% of the world's population and occupy 8.5% of the planet's total land area. And they are neighbors. When two giants sit side by side, tension is inevitable. It's simple physics, and India and China are no exception. Since their founding in 1947 and 1949, tensions between the two have been escalating. Just go to Google Maps and take a long, hard look at the border between India and China. You will notice something peculiar. There's no solid border, just dashed lines, except for this segment between Nepal and Bhutan, where a 220 kilometers border has actually been settled. But why is that? Why is there no border between India and China? Why is this bit so special that the border was actually agreed upon? Also, what about those dashed lines between China and Bhutan or India and Nepal? What's the story behind them? And don't even get me started on the huge mess in Kashmir. I mean, seriously, why is the highest and emptiest region on Earth so full of disputed territories? To answer these questions, we first need to understand a lesser-known geographical concept, the third pole. Yes, in addition to the North and South poles, there is another pole in the world, the Hindu Kush Karakoram Himalayan system, the highest region on Earth. Unlike the two deadly poles at the top and bottom of the planet, this third pole quite literally feeds billions of people. It stores more frozen water than anywhere else in the world, second only to the polar regions, and spans 5 countries: China, India, Pakistan, Nepal, and Bhutan. In this project, we will journey to the third pole, exploring these countries, hiking through the Rock Mountains, and if possible, visiting the disputed territories ourselves. We will study the rich culture of High Asia, explore the Tibetan Sphere, and examine its place between the Sinosphere and Indosphere. We will live among the highland communities, listen to their stories, discuss the borders drawn by the British, and witness the ongoing rivalries between India and China, India and Pakistan, as well as regional conflicts between China and Bhutan and India and Nepal. This journey will touch on many sensitive and controversial topics, but I believe they should be solely discussed and understood. Finally, through the lens of the third pole, I hope to answer this critical question: what happens when two Asian civilizations, each proud, populous, and rising, collide without a shared understanding of where one ends and the other begins? The production will take 3 to 6 months with 3 episodes, and it's gonna be a difficult and expensive project to make. This is the line that separates East Asia from Southeast Asia. Above this line lie Yunnan Province and the Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region, the two most racially diverse regions in China. Yunnan is home to over 15 million ethnic minorities, with half of its administrative divisions designated as autonomous prefectures. Guangxi, an autonomous region for the Zhuang people, is home to over 19 million ethnic minorities. Below this line are 3 Southeast Asian countries that all have a convoluted past with China: Vietnam, Myanmar, and Laos. These countries represent the most populous, the largest, and the heart of mainland Southeast Asia. Given their proximity, it's no surprise that these 5 regions share much in terms of ethnicity, language, and traditions. However, if you travel along this line, you will find that the dominant culture is neither traditional Vietnamese, Myanmarese, Laotian, nor Chinese, but Thai culture. You might be thinking, wait a second, I know where Thailand is. It's not even close to that line between Southeast Asia and East Asia. I get how it might have spilled over into Myanmar and Laos, but how did Thai culture reach China and Vietnam? Well, here's the thing. When I say Thai, I don't mean Thai, Thai, as in Thailand. Instead, I mean Thai, Thai, in a much broader sense. Other than the Thai Thai in Thailand, Thai Thai also includes the Dai and Drang peoples in China, the Dai Thai Nun peoples in Vietnam, the Lao people in Laos, and the Shan people in Myanmar. Beyond these larger groups, there are many smaller Thai groups across these 4 countries as well. It's a massive cultural sphere that includes 100 million people. The Thai peoples share similar languages, beliefs, and festivals, which raises several questions. When did this line at the crossroads of 4 countries emerge? What did it mean to the people living here? And why does Thai culture have such a strong influence along this line? In this project, we will travel to Yunnan, Guangxi, Vietnam, Laos, and Myanmar, exploring the formation of this mountainous border between East Asia and Southeast Asia, and the blood spilled over it. We will talk about the migration and integration of the Thai peoples and the dramas between East Asians and Southeast Asians. We will live among the locals, seek out the mountain clans in the jungle, and listen to their stories. We will look for traces of the French and British colonial past and the descendants of the last royals who once ruled across this line. We will discuss the Chinese Civil War, Myanmar Civil War, the Vietnam War, the bombing of Laos, and how these wars gave birth to gray zones like the Golden Triangle, infamous for drug trading, human trafficking, smuggling, and scam centers. Ultimately, through the Thai peoples and this mysterious corridor, I'd like to find the answer to this question. What happens when civilizations meet not in harmony, but at contested frontiers, where wars, diasporas, and refugees reshape the meaning of belonging? The production of this project will take 3 to 6 months with 3 episodes, and it will be both difficult and costly to make. After studying the border between East Asia and Southeast Asia, we move south to mainland Southeast Asia, the 2nd largest peninsula in the world. This peninsula has been known by many names, such as Chin India, Further India, the peninsula beyond the Ganges, etc. While it is now more commonly referred to as mainland Southeast Asia, centuries ago, during the period of French and British rule, they simply called it Indo-China, literally the land between India and China. It has a land area of 2.07 million square kilometers, is home to 270 million people, and is made up of 6 countries: Vietnam, Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, and Malaysia. At first glance, the borders between these countries might seem unremarkable, just like any other borders. But in reality, the uniqueness of the borders on this peninsula cannot be found anywhere else. While it's true that these borders were largely drawn by Europeans in the 19th and 20th century, the situation here differs from the colonization of the Americas, Africa, and India, which began in the 15th and 16th centuries. The Europeans didn't fully colonize mainland Southeast Asia until the late 19th century, with Thailand successfully avoiding colonization. Prior to European arrival, this region was home to many kingdoms with thousands of years of history. And the problem is that the people's memory of those old borders is still fresh, and they look nothing like the ones drawn by the Europeans. The difference between the old and new border has been the source of many regional wars, some of which continue to this day. But how exactly were the old borders drawn? How exactly were the new borders drawn? And more importantly, what are the differences between these 2 versions that made the borders here so fragile? For this project, we will travel to all 6 countries and explore the peninsula from the Chinese border to the Singaporean border, from the shores of the Indian Ocean to the shores of the South China Sea. We will study the dramas of mainland Southeast Asia in detail and understand how everyone here has parts of territories in everyone else. We will explore not only each country's unification story, but also Vietnam's colonization of Cambodia, Vietnam's domination of Laos, Thailand's invasions of Cambodia, Thailand's annexation of Western Laos, Myanmar's many conquests of Thailand, Malaysia's border conflicts with Thailand, and the many disputes in the Gulf of Thailand. We will examine both the ancient and modern borders and see how these lines cut through civilizations, leaving a patchwork where neighbors overlap in language, ethnicity, and culture, making the borders zones of entanglement rather than separation. Through the lens of mainland Southeast Asia, we attempt to answer this question. When borders divide people with shared culture and faith, can they ever accept being ruled by the other? The production of this series will take 6 to 12 months with 4 episodes. It won't be too expensive to produce, but the conflict in Myanmar will certainly increase the difficulty level. What we are looking at is maritime Southeast Asia, the largest archipelago on Earth, home to 408 million people and 6 countries: Singapore, Malaysia, Brunei, Timor-Leste, the Philippines, and Indonesia. The region controls some of the world's most critical sea lanes, with 25% of global trade and much of East Asia's oil passing through its waters. Situated between the Indian and Pacific Oceans, no sea route on Earth is busier, and frankly, no region is more diverse. Here you can find Islamic mosques next to Hindu temples, Spanish Catholicism blended with animist rituals, and Malay proverbs with Arabic and Chinese loanwords written in Sanskrit, all in one village. It is home to some of the oldest and largest Hindu and Buddhist temples in the world. The region has over 270 million Muslims, more than the entire Middle East combined. It also has 142 million Christians, making it the region with the largest Christian population in Asia. It is home to the world's largest Chinese community outside China, with 15 to 17 million ethnic Chinese calling MSEA home. Nearly 4 million ethnic Indians have been born and raised here, contributing to one of the largest Indian diasporas globally. The region was colonized by every major European superpower: Portugal, Spain, the Netherlands, the UK, and more. Some powers ruled for decades, while others ruled for centuries. Even today, hundreds of millions of people in the region still use European names, and English is widely spoken. Afterward, the region fell under Japanese rule, witnessed some of the bloodiest and longest battles in human history, and became the last battleground of World War II. Some Japanese soldiers were still fighting the war almost 3 decades after Japan surrendered. Looking at MSEA is like observing a layered cocktail. Each culture represents its own unique layer. They don't quite mix, but they also don't disappear. In fact, MSEA may be the only region in the world that, despite being influenced by every major global civilization, has managed to retain its native traditions. This makes it the most layered region on Earth. But how is this possible? How did diversity, a concept that is now causing chaos in many parts of the world, become the foundation of a civilization here? For this project, we will visit all 6 countries and uncover the secrets of maritime Southeast Asia. We will explore the diverse communities in the region, understand their origins, their roles, and how they've preserved their identities across generations. We will analyze the rivalry between European powers and their strategies for coexistence. A significant portion of the project will focus on the region's geography and geology, shedding light on how MSEA's unique position has fostered multiculturalism in a way that is impossible elsewhere, and how this layered culture could position MSEA as a global center of gravity in the 21st century. Finally, through the maritime Southeast Asia, I'd like to invite everyone to reflect on this question. Can humanity truly coexist in diversity without one culture erasing the others? The production will take 6 to 12 months with a total of 4 episodes. It will be both difficult and expensive to make. This is Africa, a continent with 1.56 billion people and an area of 30.3 million square kilometers. From north to south, 10 countries border each other, stretching from the Mediterranean Sea to the Atlantic Ocean. They are Egypt, Sudan, South Sudan, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and South Africa. Together, this corridor covers 8.2 million square kilometers and has a combined population of 441 million. That's 27% of Africa's land and 28% of its population. And here's a map of Africa from over 100 years ago. If you look closely, you will see that back then, this entire corridor was under one master, the British Empire. And this master had a plan for the region to build a Trans-Africa Railway connecting Cape Town to Cairo. If fully connected, this railway would create a continental core for Africa, linking the Atlantic Ocean, Indian Ocean, Red Sea, and Mediterranean, giving the British an unchallengeable position on the continent. The plan was conceived as early as 1874, quickly gained momentum, and was initiated at the end of the 19th century. By the time World War I broke out, the southern sections from Cape Town to Victoria Falls Bridge had already been completed. The central sections in Uganda and Kenya were also finished, as well as the northern sections in Egypt and Sudan. The only missing piece was Tanzania, which was then a German colony. But by the time World War I ended, the British had captured Tanzania from the Germans, completing the final piece of the puzzle. However, just as the British were about to connect those tracks, the Great Depression of the 1930s halted the project. After World War II, Africa's decolonization effectively ended this railway. Now in 2025, nearly 80 years have passed since the British abandoned this colonial project, and Africa is a very different place. Many old states have fallen, new ones have been born, valuable resources have been discovered, and the population is booming. Yet, the continent remains poor, fragmented, lacking common interests, and plagued with violence. Africa needs to reconcile and come together, not ideologically, militarily, or politically, but economically. How do we do that, you ask? Well, how about completing the Cape to Cairo Railway and giving Africa an iron spine and ribs? Only this time it wouldn't serve the British Empire, but would aim to build real unity. In this project, we will visit the countries in the corridor, take many train rides, read a lot of Ernest Hemingway, and explore both the colonial sections of the Cape to Cairo Railway and the potential new sections. We will investigate how this railway could function as a continental superpower corridor that could address Africa's many challenges, and how countries like India, China, Russia, UK, and the US might happily provide the necessary funds and peace to make this vision a reality. At the same time, we will study the immense challenges such a project will face and why it may never come to fruition. Through the reimagination of the Cape to Cairo Railway, I'd like everyone to rethink the meaning of great infrastructure projects. Do they bring humanity together, or do they merely expose our divisions? The production will take 6 to 12 months with a total of 4 episodes. Both the difficulty and cost will be high. There are 3 important island chains in the Pacific. The first chain runs from Japan's home islands to the Ryukyu Islands, Taiwan, the northern Philippines, and Borneo. The second chain stretches from Japan's Izu Islands to the Ogasawara Islands, the Volcano Islands, the Mariana Islands, Guam, Yap Island, the Palau Islands, and Halmahera Island. The third chain begins at the Aleutian Islands and runs south across the center of the Pacific Ocean toward Oceania, passing through the Hawaiian Islands, American Samoa, and Fiji before reaching New Zealand. These imagined island chains were conceived by no ordinary country. They were envisioned by the United States of America, the most powerful country on Earth, as a strategic means to contain its mightiest rival, the People's Republic of China, a rising power that threatens America's global position day by day. The military often refers to an island as an unthinkable aircraft carrier. You can station troops, build airports, dig tunnels, store ammunition, and deploy artillery systems, all on just one island. Now, imagine a chain of islands, and it's like having a fleet of unthinkable aircraft carriers. The US now has 3 such island fleets in the Pacific, strategically positioned to contain China. From the map, it may seem as though China is hopelessly encircled by the US and its allies, with its maritime lifelines under constant surveillance. So here comes the question: will these 3 island chains, and 5 if you include the 2 proposed in the Indian Ocean, actually work? Unlike my other projects, this one will focus more on modern conflicts. We will visualize the rivalry between China and the US in the Pacific, explore all 3 island chains, not every island, but the critical ones, and analyze their strengths and weaknesses. We will also examine how advantages could quickly become disadvantages and vice versa, as geography always works both ways. After analyzing the geography, we will turn to diplomacy and regional cooperation. Because let's not forget that for this strategy to work, everyone involved must work together. And in the 21st century, aligning all these countries with US interests is not as easy as it was 50 years ago. We will interview people from these countries to learn how they truly feel about being part of this island chain strategy, what they consider noise, and what they regard as real threats. Through the lens of these island chains, I want to challenge you with this question. For superpowers, is coexistence ever truly an option? The production of this project will take 3 to 6 months, and there will be 3 episodes in total. It will be both costly and challenging to make. This is the Hawaiian archipelago, an island chain in the North Pacific Ocean that extends over 2,400 kilometers, from the island of Hawaii in the south to the northernmost Kuri Atoll. It is the loneliest island chain in the world, with no land in sight for thousands of miles in every direction. As of 2025, the state of Hawaii has a population of 1.45 million. Among them, the largest ethnic group is Asian, making up over 37.3% of the population, more than 3 times the number of native Hawaiians. Within the Asian community, the largest group is Japanese, with approximately 320,000 ethnic Japanese living in Hawaii, about 22% of the state's total population. To clarify, these are not seasonal tourists from Japan. These Japanese and their ancestors have been living in Hawaii for generations, some for over 150 years, when Hawaii was still an independent kingdom. If you visit Hawaii, you will find it impossible to miss the state's ubiquitous Japanese elements, from Japanese restaurants, parks, and shopping centers to Japanese signs, festivals, and cemeteries. The Japanese influence is everywhere. The University of Hawaii has one of the most prestigious Japanese programs in the US. Much of Japan's famous Wagyu beef is raised on Hawaiian ranches. If you are a millennial, you've probably watched the famous Dragon Ball. Do you remember this technique? Kamehameha. Yeah, that one. That is actually a wordplay on the name of the first Hawaiian king, Kamehameha. And do you know why the famous Midway Atoll is called Midway? Because it lies midway between San Francisco and Tokyo. In the 1920s, the Japanese made up over 43% of Hawaii's population. In the 1990s, the Japanese owned 30% of Hawaii's hotel space. On Oahu, Japanese hotel ownership was as high as 42%. At one point, the Japanese effectively controlled Hawaii's economy and ran the state. But why? Hawaii is 6,300 kilometers from Japan. Hawaii was where the Pacific War began. The attack on Pearl Harbor led the US to go to war with Japan. So why just a few decades later was Hawaii practically run by the Japanese? Seriously, why is 22% of Hawaii's population of Japanese descent? What does Japan mean to Hawaii? And more importantly, what does Hawaii mean to Japan? For this project, we will visit all the major islands in Hawaii to explore how the Japanese arrived, built, destroyed, and rebuilt the islands. We will talk about the founding of the Hawaiian Kingdom in 1795, its first contact with the Japanese in 1806, labor immigration in the 1860s, the US takeover of Hawaii in 1898, the surge in the Japanese population in the 1920s, the Pacific War, the post-war era, and more. We will interview many people about their family histories, do a lot of hiking, and read my favorite short story, Hanalei Bay, at Hanalei Bay together. Ultimately, through these Japanese Hawaiians, I invite everyone to reflect on how migration, cultural assimilation, and historical trauma shape the identity and resilience of a community in a foreign land. The production will take 3 to 6 months with 3 episodes. While it will be easier than most projects, it will certainly be more expensive. This is where Kazakhstan, Russia, and China meet. And this is where Mongolia, Russia, and China meet. The two tri-points are only 39.39 kilometers apart and sit on a unique mountain range, the Altai Mountains, the geographical midpoint of Asia. As shown on the map, the Altai Mountains are currently divided among Russia, China, Kazakhstan, and Mongolia. Each of these countries has its own Altai region, the Altai Republic and Altai Krai in Russia, the Altai District in Kazakhstan, the Altai Prefecture in China, and Gobi Altai Province, along with 2 Altai districts in Mongolia. In total, these 4 Altai regions cover about 652,000 square kilometers and have a combined population of around 3.7 million people. For millennia, the Altai Mountains have served as a crossroads for migration routes of nomads. The Yuezhi, Xiongnu, Xianbei, Turks, Khitans, Mongols, and many others have all passed through here. In many ways, the Altai Mountains are like a time capsule preserving nomadic genes from different times. It is the cradle of the Turkic peoples and remains a secret place for nomadism. The nomads from here once ruled much of Asia, extending their influence to Beijing, Lhasa, Baghdad, and Cairo. However, since the mid-18th century, the Altai region has been absorbed by the Qing Empire and the Russian Empire. By the time the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, it had fractured into 4 pieces, with Russia, China, Kazakhstan, and Mongolia each controlling one. Now, over 30 years later, all 4 countries have undergone dramatic changes. I believe it's time to revisit the Altai Mountains to see how the nomads there are faring today. We want to understand if they are doing well, what religion do they follow, are the Altai nomads from the 4 countries still in touch with one another? What does it feel like to live between 4 massive countries, each with different policies and economic models? And last but not least, what does it mean to be a nomad in the 21st century? For this project, we will visit all 4 Altai regions and film from late summer to late winter, living among the nomads, eating with them, herding with them, hunting with them, and listening to their stories. Through the 4 Altai regions, we will explore the lives of nomads in the 21st century and ask whether there is still a future for nomadism. Can their ancient way of life survive when the land they depend on is fractured by nation-states? While the production will be a bit costly and the working conditions will be quite harsh, I'm confident that we will capture some truly incredible footage and document many untold stories. This project will take 3 to 6 months, with 3 episodes in total. This is South America, a continent covering 17.84 million square kilometers, home to 434 million people, and full of countries with interesting shapes and facts. There's Brazil, the giant that shares borders with every South American country except for Chile and Ecuador. There's Chile, a narrow country stretching 4,300 kilometers north to south, but averaging only about 177 kilometers in width. Then there's Bolivia, which despite being landlocked, still maintains a navy and has access to the Chilean ports. Ecuador is named Ecuador because it lies across Earth's equator. Colombia is named after Christopher Columbus. Venezuela is named after Venice, and Paraguay and Uruguay are both named after rivers of the same names. At the southernmost tip, there is a curious perpendicular border between Chile and Argentina, which makes you wonder about its origin. There is the country of Peru, which has almost all the seasons and geographies at once. And then there are the 3 non-Spanish, non-Portuguese speaking countries: Dutch-speaking Suriname, English-speaking Guyana, and French-speaking French Guyana, which remains part of the European Union despite being an ocean away from Europe. There are also many legendary islands. Some are famous for unique features. Some are where Darwin developed his theory of evolution. Some inspired the novel Robinson Crusoe, and some are still disputed between the UK and Argentina. And all of this is just the tip of the iceberg. South America is a continent full of stories, many more than North America. Yet, interestingly, despite both being discovered at the same time, colonized in similar ways, with similar size and population, gaining independence nearly simultaneously, and being popular destinations for immigration, one gave birth to the United States, the most powerful country ever to exist in human history, dominating the world in every way imaginable, while the other remains fragmented, chaotic, and not dominating much at all. This raises an intriguing question. Why couldn't South America produce a superpower like the United States? Something must have gone wrong in South America that set its course toward a different reality. So what exactly went wrong? For this project, we will visit every country in South America, capturing its landscapes, pre-European ruins, and famous battlegrounds, and interviewing locals about their thoughts on South America's role on the world stage. We will explore the region's colonial past, the rivalry between the Spanish and the Portuguese, and the influence of the French, Dutch, and British. We will look at the deep divides between European-descended elites, indigenous peoples, and African-descended populations, and the many treaties and wars that shaped South America's borders. In addition to its past, we will also discuss the region's current political climate, the challenges it faces, and the recent trend of South Americans re-immigrating to Europe. Through South America, we will explore this question together. What factors play the most important role in building a superpower? Shared culture, favorable geography, political view for unity, or something else entirely? The production will take about a year, with 4 episodes. I expect this project will be both difficult and expensive to make. Imagine the Mediterranean Sea as a giant chessboard between Europe and Africa, with the islands in the middle as chess pieces. Then the 5 biggest pieces will be Sicily, Sardinia, Cyprus, Corsica, and Crete. Sicily and Sardinia are the 2 largest islands in Italy. Corsica is the 2nd largest island in France. Crete is the largest island in Greece, and Cyprus is divided between the Republic of Cyprus in the south and the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus in the north. Unlike islands in the Pacific Ocean that remain isolated until the age of exploration, the Mediterranean islands have been at the heart of human civilization since the dawn of time. However, unlike other island groups around the world where many smaller islands are independent nations, only 2 out of the 1,200 Mediterranean islands are sovereign: Malta and Cyprus. Even these 2 became independent only in the 1960s and continue to face all kinds of troubles. But if you have been to these 5 islands, you will realize that these are not some unimportant islands lacking history or culture. Quite the opposite, these islands once wielded immense power and were home to great empires and conquerors. They were once the very centers of empires rather than peripheral territories, and were prized possessions that countless soldiers and battleships died for. Yet today, if you ask people from outside the Mediterranean, almost no one knows anything about them. The only exception might be Sicily, which is better known as the hometown of mafia families in New York, rather than for its historical significance. But since when did these once important Mediterranean islands fade into obscurity? Why are people no longer talking about them? And how did they become mere pawns? In this project, we will make these 5 islands the protagonists and explore the history of the Mediterranean Sea through their lenses. We will travel to Corsica, Sardinia, Sicily, Crete, and Cyprus in that order, reviving ancient memories and studying the critical roles each island has played over the centuries. We will look at the marks left by empires, old and new, visit the sites of some of the bloodiest and longest sea battles, and analyze the geography that made these islands so strategically important. We will talk about the religious transformations these islands underwent, shaped by the rise and fall of empires, as well as their involvement in the 2 world wars. Finally, we will discuss the current power dynamics in the Mediterranean, examining the crucial influence these islands have not only for the EU, but also for NATO and Western civilization. Through these 5 islands, we attempt to understand why humanity so often turns crossroads into battlegrounds rather than bridges, and why it seems to be a law of history that every civilization has its own natural cycle, and that the baton of power eventually passes on. The production will take 6 to 9 months with 5 episodes in total. While it won't be too difficult to make, it will definitely be an expensive project. This is the Black Sea, an intersection between Asia and Europe, an inland sea within an inland sea within an inland sea. Bordered by 6 nations, Turkey, Bulgaria, Romania, Ukraine, Russia, and Georgia, the Black Sea is currently in a state of war. This is not the first conflict fought in the Black Sea. In fact, every major European war over the past 300 years has had something to do with it. While the Mediterranean is much larger, borders more countries, and handles more trade, the Black Sea is the one filled with turmoil and likely to remain a war zone for the foreseeable future. 2 of its 4 shores face ethnic tensions and energy competition. The other 2 shores, Crimea and the Caucasus, are caught up in ongoing conflicts right now. In fact, there have been so many conflicts historically that Turkey has been granted the right to seal off the region when it feels threatened by a war. But why is that? Why has the Black Sea struggled to find peace? In 1883, Jules Verne, one of the best-selling novelists of his time, published Camehameha le Détu, Camehameha the Inflexible, one of his lesser-known and most comical works. The story follows a stubborn merchant Camehameha who refuses to pay a newly imposed tax on the Bosphorus Strait. Instead, he decides to travel 700 leagues around the perimeter of the Black Sea to get to his home in Istanbul, all to avoid paying a mere 10 tax. While the book is an enjoyable read, it may not be entirely fictional. Some claim Camehameha was a real person who undertook the journey, and Jules Verne was inspired by his adventure. You see, growing up, I've always looked up to these maniacs willing to risk everything to fight a system they don't believe in. And boy, was Camehameha a maniac. Anyway, it's been over 140 years since Jules Verne published that book, and the world has changed dramatically. The empires that once surrounded the Black Sea have all fallen, 2 world wars have been fought, and the global order has shifted. So I thought it would be interesting to retrace Camehameha's journey and see the changes in the Black Sea region for myself. I will follow Camehameha's route, traveling clockwise around the Black Sea, visiting all 4 shores, and concluding the journey in Istanbul. Along the way, we will explore the rise and fall of the Turks, Romanians, and Slavs, the collapse of the old empires, and the birth of new powers. We will also look at how outsiders are escalating the unrest on all 4 shores, NATO's growing presence, and of course, the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. Sitting on the border between Europe and Asia, the Black Sea epitomizes the turbulent history between the 2 continents over thousands of years. While this series cannot predict the future, it will help us identify the recurring patterns of the region, understand what works, what doesn't, what leads to conflict, what resolves it, and what the future might hold. Through the lens of the Black Sea, we aim to answer this question: can a shared sea ever lead to a shared destiny? The production will take 3 to 6 months with 4 episodes, each focusing on one shore of the Black Sea. While it won't be too difficult to make, the cost is certainly on the expensive side. This is the Persian Gulf, the largest single source of petroleum in the world. It holds 30% of the world's oil reserves and 20% of global natural gas reserves. As of 2023, 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas and 25% of seaborne oil trade pass through here. The Gulf countries are among the wealthiest in the world, home to some of the most beautiful buildings on Earth. Money is in the air. Yet, all this wealth, power, and architectural splendor are quite literally built on soft sand, as their existence depends entirely on the opening of one extremely narrow strait, the Hormuz. At its narrowest, the Strait of Hormuz is only 39 kilometers wide, with the actual shipping lanes even narrower. About 3 kilometers for inbound traffic, 3 kilometers for outbound traffic, and a 3-kilometer buffer zone in the middle. Unlike other important choke points, such as the Strait of Malacca or the Panama Canal, where detours are possible, there are no workarounds for the Strait of Hormuz. The Arab states tried building pipelines to transport oil to the Red Sea, but these pipelines simply cannot replace the massive volume that passes through the strait. So Hormuz truly is the throat of the world's energy system, the most critical and, technically, the easiest to close choke point on Earth. The Persian Gulf is surrounded by 8 Muslim countries: Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE, and Oman. 1 Persian country and 7 Arab countries, 6 Sunni majority states, and 2 Shia majority states. And let's just say they don't exactly get along. Since the 1850s, at least 7 major wars have been fought in the Persian Gulf. But unlike other choke points nearby, such as the Suez Canal and the Turkish Straits, which have been closed multiple times by Egypt and Turkey, the Strait of Hormuz has never been closed. In theory, whoever controls Hormuz controls the Gulf, which should give Oman and Iran significant influence over the region, but this couldn't be further from the reality. Despite having absolute control over the strait geographically and militarily, neither Oman nor Iran dares to close it. But why is that? How has the most critical and easiest to close choke point in the world never been closed? And more importantly, how have these 8 countries, with so many disagreements, managed to maintain peace in the Strait of Hormuz? For this project, we will visit all the Gulf nations and explore both sides of the Strait of Hormuz. We will talk about the dramas among royal families, the Gulf Wars, the agreements between Iran and Oman, the role Islam plays in the Gulf, and how outside powers try desperately to de-escalate tensions at this choke point. Ultimately, through the Strait of Hormuz, we will explore a contrasting scenario to the Black Sea region, how a shared strait led to a shared destiny, and how peace is sometimes achieved not through love, but through mutual dependence and vulnerability. The production of this series will take 3 to 6 months, with 3 episodes in total. The difficulty and cost will depend on the stability of the Middle East. This is Southeastern Europe, home to 7 South Slavic nations: Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, Serbia, Bulgaria, and North Macedonia. Together, they cover a combined land area of about 367,000 square kilometers and have a population of 28.9 million. This is Central Europe, home to 3 vast Slavic nations: Poland, Czechia, and Slovakia. Together, they span about 440,600 square kilometers and have a population of 54.6 million. And this is Eastern Europe, home to 3 East Slavic nations: Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia. Combined, they have a land area of 4,771,100 square kilometers and a population of 160.5 million. Altogether, these 13 Slavic nations occupy 55% of Europe and make up a third of its population. Yet, despite controlling such vast territory, having such a large population, and being so close culturally, religiously, and genetically, no people seem more divided than the Slavic nations. Among these 13 countries, the number of wars fought and still being fought is staggering. From the medieval period to the present day, wars among the Slavs have never ended. There have been multiple Polish-Russian wars, the Polish-Czechoslovak War, the Balkan Wars, World War I, the Yugoslav Wars, the ongoing Russo-Ukrainian War, and many more. As a result, unity in the Slavic universe is almost non-existent. This begs the question, why are the Slavs always at war with each other? For this project, we will visit these Slavic nations, traverse the vast Balkan mountains, and walk along the Great Danube River to explore the Slavic universe and spend time with the Slavic people, children of both Europe and Asia. We want to understand what brought them together, what fractured them, and the challenges they face today. We will discuss the differences between the West, East, and South Slavs, how the West Slavs became Catholic, the East Slavs became Orthodox, and how some South Slavic groups embraced Islam and Judaism. We will look at the legacy of empires, the origins of shifting borders and overlapping claims, how the Soviets tried to unify the Slavs under communism only to deepen the divides, and the details of Balkans' many waves of balkanization. We will also examine how sometimes similarity intensifies rivalry, how the long Slavic memories of conquest, betrayal, and deep wounds are passed down, keeping conflicts alive long after their original causes have faded, and how external powers have been exploiting the divisions among the Slavs. Through the Slavic universe, we will highlight a unique phenomenon: how the closest families can sometimes become the bitterest enemies. The production will take anywhere from 6 to 12 months with 4 episodes. The cost and difficulty level will be high as we will be traveling to more than one war zone. This is the most populous and the 7th largest country on Earth, India, a nation with 1.45 billion people and about 3.3 million square kilometers of land area. When it comes to nation building, 2 things matter the most: size and timing. India has vast, fertile land and a massive, useful population. Size is not a problem. In terms of timing, this is the 21st century, a time of revolutionary progress in technology, medicine, global connectivity, and social justice across the world. However, when you visit India, you may find the reality quite different from what you expect. The illiteracy rate remains high, poverty is widespread, food hygiene is poor, corruption is rampant, and the status quo seems unlikely to change in the foreseeable future. But why is this? India has been independent for nearly 80 years. Other countries in East and Southeast Asia, which share a similar colonial past, have advanced far beyond India in every aspect. And it's not as if India was never powerful. The Maurya Empire defeated the Greeks, the Delhi Sultanate beat the Mongols, the Mughal Empire developed a strong economy, and the Maratha Empire established a formidable navy. From the giant Buddha in Japan to the Neaston Temple in the UK, from the invention of zero to the game of chess, Indian culture is everywhere across the globe. But why is a nation with such a rich civilization, a proud history, exceptional geography, and abundant manpower struggling to prosper? I believe the answer lies in the shadows of 10 iconic cities in India: Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Ahmedabad, Chennai, Kolkata, Kochi, Amritsar, and Varanasi. These cities are home to 10 ethnic groups that speak 10 mutually unintelligible languages: Marathi, Hindi, Kannada, Telugu, Gujarati, Tamil, Bengali, Malayalam, Punjabi, and Sanskrit. To truly understand the challenges India faces, we must first understand these cities and their complexities. For this project, we will visit all 10 cities to uncover their stories. We will live with the locals, learn their views on other peoples in India, and immerse ourselves in their cultures, languages, and religions. We will visit not only temples and mosques, but also tech hubs, busy ports, and thriving commercial centers. While we will discuss India's colonial past, the focus of this series will be on the internal conflicts India faces, such as caste alliances within the political parties, regionalism in Punjab, Nagaland, and Kashmir, the stark inequalities that persist, and more. We will confront the harsh truths of India, a civilization of civilizations, where each region could almost be its own country, where more is less is a daily reality, and where no cure can be found in the near future. Through the lens of these 10 cities, we study how diversity, multiculturalism, and democracy, something the West has been celebrating for decades, could potentially cripple a great nation. The production will take 12 to 18 months with 5 episodes in total. It will be a very challenging and expensive project to make. Hello everyone. I've been wanting to have this conversation with you all for a very long time now. As many of you know, the shows I've made in the past are no longer financially viable.
They were difficult to produce, expensive, extremely time-consuming, and unfortunately, they didn't perform well in terms of views. With YouTube demonetizing many of them, the money just isn't coming in anymore. To continue my career, I need to pause and find the right platform with the funding and team support I need because, let's face it, working alone with a tiny budget is incredibly difficult. To give you an idea of just how hard it is to create a show all by myself, let me share with you my workflow for the recent 7 Stand series. I spent a month researching, writing about 30% of the script, learning basic Russian, and planning my route. Then I traveled to these countries, filming every day. At night, I wrote scripts. During the day, I filmed. It was intense 2 months of non-stop filming, with several close calls in Uzbekistan and Tajikistan. After returning home, I spent another 3 months reading, researching, and writing the next 30% of the script. Then I worked on finalizing the script for episode 1, which took 8 drafts. Filming, editing, and publishing took another month. When episode 1 was done, immediately I moved on to episode 2, spending another 40 days producing it. Every step was difficult. Animation, finding footage, choosing music, creating historical maps by hand, and designing thumbnails. After finishing episode 2, there were still 5 more episodes to go. Just imagine the immense loneliness, pressure, and helplessness I felt every single day. While I absolutely love what I do, I must admit that suffering is a big part of the job. If you check the release dates for the 7 Stand series, you will see that I didn't have a single day of rest. And after pouring everything I had into it, I found that the algorithm simply abandoned me. The final episode was uploaded in July, but YouTube quickly limited its monetization and stopped recommending it to my viewers. As a result, the most important episode of the series only got fewer than 5,000 views. I worked 13 hours a day for 2 months, and after YouTube took its 45% share, I earned just $376.12. And the numbers just don't work. I know the kind of person I am. I can't carry a camera everywhere I go or put on a big smile all the time. Vlogging and live streaming are not for me. I don't know how to run a channel or market my work, and frankly, I don't want to, because the only thing I want in this life is the opportunity to make big epic shows about humanity and our planet, which really just means 4 jobs: writing scripts, speaking in front of the camera, going to places, and meeting people. But working alone means doing everything myself. And to be honest, I don't have much talent or much money. I've learned filming, editing, animation, and design through free online tutorials, and I've never spent a day in a professional studio. I use the cheapest professional camera, drone, lighting, second-hand equipment, free music, an old laptop for editing, and only have 2 lenses. When I'm on filming expeditions, I always stay in hostels, use public transportation, and cook most of my meals to save money. I can say this confidently. I have given everything I have to my show. But the reality is, however hard one tries, producing video is just really expensive. I know many of you enjoy my filming, editing, animation style very much, but honestly, the shows I make now are less than 5% of what I envision. I could do much better with a well-funded, talented team, maybe even creating some of the most successful and impactful shows in the world. Since we're talking about a highly professional team and millions in funding that will cover decades of production, ideally, I'd like to work for major platforms like Amazon Prime, HBO, Netflix, Apple TV, Discovery, National Geographic, NHK World, PBS, Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, Hulu, etc. But the problem is, I don't know anyone in this industry, and no one knows about me. And that is where you come in. One person has limited power, but together, we can make a difference. If you're in media or entertainment or know anyone working for these platforms, I'd appreciate an introduction. I just need the opportunity to discuss these projects, and I'm open to all suggestions and locations as long as I can continue this path. If you don't know anyone from the industry, sharing this video, liking it, and leaving a comment about which project you are most excited to see and why would mean a lot to me. I understand this journey won't be easy. It's supposed to be difficult, but I've made it this far on my own, and I won't give up. Beyond these 20 projects, I have over 200 ideas in my files, each as exciting as the last. From projects about Antarctica, the Caribbean, and Oceania, to famous historical journeys, legendary rail tours, and much more. The possibilities are endless. So anyway, if you know anyone, any teams or any companies or platforms who might be interested in working with me on these projects, want me to produce something else entirely, or just need a dedicated team member, please reach out to me at jingwushow.contact@gmail.com. If things go well, I'll be working for a platform next year. If not, I will keep pushing until I get there. Thank you so much for your support. Let's make something extraordinary together. See you next time. Jingwu out.